Hello everyone, this is Act 3, Scene 1, continuation. This portion is exactly after the assassination of Caesar. After the assassination of Caesar, the whole of Rome is in chaos. People running helter skelter, not knowing what will happen next. Antony too runs to the safety of his abode and then sends a messenger to find out whether he can meet Brutus and Cassius safely without any harm to himself. To this, Brutus assures that Antony will not be harmed. So Mark Antony comes to meet them. As he enters, Mark Antony hardly cares to recognize, for a while, the bloody troop standing there in a bunch. He goes straight to Caesar's corpse, bends over it, and pays his sincere tribute to the great one departed. Then he turns round on the men assembled and asks them straight if it is their intention to kill him, and if that is so, he is ready. It is an honor to die with Caesar, and by the same hands that had drawn his blood. The choice and master spirits of the sage, he says. Brutus withers before this Olympian irony. He says something like this, like his love for Rome as having killed his love for Caesar. But that, as far as Antony is concerned, all the conspirators are ready to receive him like a brother. And they do receive him in with all kind love, good thoughts, and reverence. Cassius, meanwhile, knows Antony as a shrewd contriver. He is no idealist and has a wholesome dread of all sob stuff. He tells Antony plainly that if it pleases him to befriend them truly, he will have a share of the spoils. Maybe get a position in the Senate. Antony pretends to take the hint and straightaway gives a hearty handshake to each of the conspirators, singling out in particular the valiant Casca, the man who had struck the first blow from behind, and the good Trebonius, who had cunningly drawn Antony away from the scene to ensure the success of their enterprise. Lest the conspirators should imagine that he is only acting a part, though that is exactly what Mark Antony is doing, he turns with a repentant heart to where Caesar lies and craves excuse of the departed spirit, with just a little spice of flattery for his killers. He says they are a band of lordly hunters who have brought a noble hart deer to the kill and are now dyeing themselves with its rich red blood. And he is led on by his emotions to say, O world, thou wast the forest to this hart, and this indeed, O world, the heart of thee. How like a deer strucken by many princes dost thou here lie? Cassius calls out to Mark Antony, and that brings him back to realization. And he quickly says, Pardon me, Caius Cassius, the enemies of Caesar will say this. Then, in a friend, it is cold modesty. There is a reassurance of friendship between Antony and the group, and Antony asks permission to give a speech at Caesar's funeral. Brutus agrees, in spite of Cassius' hesitation, and tells Antony that he will speak after Brutus' speech to the Roman crowd and will not blame or criticize them in his speech. He can praise Caesar as much as he wants, thereby laying foundation to a speech by Mark Antony that will remain the greatest ever in world literature. But before this famous speech, there is an animated, emotion-ridden speech of Antony after the conspirators leave him alone with Caesar's body. It goes like this. Pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived the tide of times. He further adds that they have by this foul murder brought domestic fury and fierce civil strife, that will engulf the whole of Rome, and blood and gore will be so common and everyday occurrence that nothing will shock people. Mothers may just smile when they see infants quartered with the hands of war. Caesar's spirit will be ranging for revenge, with 8 by his side, come from hot hell, and shall let slip the dogs of war. And these criminals shall fall by their own hands, says an Antony, seething with rage. A messenger comes now to say that Octavius Caesar has come and is waiting just outside Rome. Antony tells him that this morning Rome is not safe for Octavius to enter. Let him wait. Then he tells the messenger to be present when Mark Antony addresses the crowd so that he can gauge the sentiments of the crowd and report that to Octavius. With this, the stage is set for Brutus' speech to the crowd first, which is in the next scene.